Hi everyone, and welcome to the REF6 weekly podcast and vlog. This is week 4. I am joined today by my colleague John. John, do you want to just intro yourself?
Yeah, as always, I'm John, level 4 referees from Sussex.
Brilliant. And on the call today, on our we have some extinguished guests. Matt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Matt Redmond, level 4 referee from Devon, currently down in Torquay, so South Devon for me.
Brilliant. And Billy?
Hi, I'm Billy Wootten, level 6 referee, just based in East Sussex.
Brilliant. And how are your season going so far?
Yeah, personally, my season's going really well. First season at 4, having been promoted, so good step up. Some good standing of football down here in the south and southwest pool. So yeah, it's going really well. Really enjoying it. Apart from now the weather's turning.
Yeah, definitely. Some long sleeves under. And Billy, how about you? How's your season going?
Yeah, it's going all right. First at 6, going for 5 this year. Started well so far. Kind of, obviously at 6 you do a lot more park football, so the weather's become a bit more of a problem for me, but should be able to cope well.
Brilliant, cool. So as anyone who's listening or watching knows, basically the purpose of this this conversation that we're recording is to talk through a variety of different topics from refereeing at all different levels. So we're going to start with some news, and basically we've got 2 appointments to cover. The Women's FA Cup final from, I guess, last season that's run over into this season is being hosted this Sunday between Everton and Man City. The referee is Rebecca Welch. The assistant referees are Sean Massey-Ellis and Natalie Aspinall. 4th official Abby Byrne, and reserve assistant referee Emily Carney. So great to see a pretty cool appointment so early on in the season, even though it was from last season. But that's great.
Yeah, and then following up on that same thing, the FA Youth Cups, they're doing like, you know, that the Champions League did where they hosted the semi-final and the final over.
Yeah, all in one weekend.
All in one weekend.
Okay,
so the
cool.
FA Youth Cup are doing that this weekend. So obviously following on from last year's problem, they cancelled it. So Jeff Everington is refereeing it on the Monday. Andrew Fox and Jonathan Hunt are the assistant referee, and the 4th officials are Gary Rose. So congratulations to them, really.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, it's going to be interesting because they're the only ones named for the final right now. The other 2 teams have got to make it through, so that'll be great. So that's basically the news, major appointments, which is great for English officials. And what we have is some other big news, and it's based on something that we're looking to do coming up this Sunday all throughout November. And ideally, we're looking at to be an annual event where we basically inspire or engage the refereeing community to show how powerful we are as a group to raise money for charity. So this Sunday, we're launching the REF6k challenge. And basically we're asking referees all across the country to either run or walk 6 kilometers, complete that any time in November. It could be on Sunday, it could be at the last day of the month, or whenever they can fit it in. Once they've completed that, we'd love you to donate £6 through our Just Giving link, and then nominate 6 of your referee friends to go and do the same. And once you've done it, you know, we'd love you to post it on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Take a photo of whatever you've used to track it. If you're a REF6 user, why not use REF6? But if not, use Strava, use Apple Health, whatever you need to. And then just, you know, put a nice collage together on Instagram, on your story of, you know, your run, your nominations and your donation, and that would be great. And John, do you want to chat about the charity we've chosen?
Yeah, so the charity we've chosen has come to light, quite publicised with Rashford the last couple of weeks. Obviously with this free school meal things not being taken up very well. So Rashford's done a really good sort of like charity base. So we thought we'd carry on with that, especially being a half term at the moment. So we're working with Fair Share. And it's the UK's longest running food distribution charity. And as obviously most of you will probably know, they're helping provide free school meals for the children that need it during the holidays, because that's obviously the time where they don't get it. So they get it during the school times, but obviously the holidays are the hardest time. So we're looking to help support them this year, however best we can.
Through the power of the refereeing community,
exactly.
right? That's the key. And yeah, the beauty of their whole model is actually they work with supermarkets and restaurants and take food waste that would either go to landfill and actually redistribute that and provide it to other charities to support the different people. So it's really exciting. We're really happy to announce this challenge on Sunday, and we'd love for those who are listening to take part as best you can. So that's the news. That's our news as well, which hopefully you'll see a lot more to come through our social media. And now I'm going to pass it and chat and bring in our guests to talk about some of the incidents from the weekend, just from the Premier League matches. And we picked two. We'll start with the Southampton-Everton match. Everton's first defeat of the season. They've been a bit of a, I don't know if it's a surprise package. I don't know, but they've won 5. They won 5 out of 5. Travelled to Southampton, who I would have said most people thought it would have been another win for Everton, but it turned out not to be. And their captain, Lucas Digne, got a red card for a challenge in the second half, I believe. It caused a little bit of a controversy online. I'm not exactly sure why, but it was a really interesting kind of incident whereby it looked like he made a challenge on I think it was Bertrand. Was it Bertrand? Or one of the Southampton players. Tripped him. But he carried on. The referee played advantage, and then he's gone through again. And that second challenge resulted in a red card for serious foul play. So I'm going to pass it over to Matt if you want to talk through what you thought about the incident, because we've got a variety of different opinions when I looked online. Some people thought the referee could have given 2 yellow cards, one for the first trip, played the advantage, and one for the second trip. Some people were clear that the foul that was given a red card should have been a red card. So really keen to hear your thoughts and what you think.
I saw the incident, and then obviously he's had one bite at him. Referees played good advantage and then brought it back. For me, I've looked at it so many times, and obviously you only get one view of it live in the game. So I think it's a big call. I think he probably got it right on the balance, but I still, every time I see it, sometimes I change my mind, and I think, actually, was it a complete accident? Because if you see his foot actually lands on the back of his Achilles heel and actually just gets stuck there, and he's sort of sliding along with his foot on top, and I think that he hasn't meant for that to happen. I think if he tried it again 100 times, it wouldn't happen. But he's tried to make that contact. He's made that foul. And unfortunately, it's gone into dangerous play for me. And I think on the balance, he's got it right. But you can see with rose-tinted glasses as a player, perhaps, of the intention wasn't there. Therefore, why should you send him off? Surely the yellow would be okay. But for me personally, I think he's got it right. I wouldn't know what I would do at the game. To be fair, 100 mile an hour, that decision to make, I don't know. I'd have to read the player reaction, read the game as well. Because if you look when he gets sent off and as he's leaving the field of play, he's actually confused as to why he's been sent off. And that to me kind of gives me that impression that there wasn't that intent for the foul to be that bad.
Sure. No, great. A great synopsis. Billy, did you have anything different on it?
Yeah, I can see both sides of it. I think I'm split in 2 minds. One, because he wasn't actually in my fantasy team. So that but then at the same time, I think he's going at speed. I don't think he's meant to do it, but I don't think, if we're looking at law, I don't think that matters, that the relevancy of him actually meaning to do it or not. And I think once you go on the Achilles, the back of the Achilles, it's going to be endangering the safety of an opponent. So I think red card was right, but I do understand why people saying yellow, because it's a quite hard one to sell, because he obviously hasn't meant to do it. But yeah.
Sure. No, great. I mean, we watched Ref Watch with Dermot Gallagher earlier, and they did a poll of, I guess it's biased poll because it's part of it's the fans saying yes or no, and actually it came out like 48% thought it was red and 52% no. So we can all agree it was kind of one of those where you're probably okay with the yellow and you're probably okay with the red, but you're not exactly sure which way you go. Yeah. It's a clear orange is basically the answer. What do you think, John? Because I think you're quite strongly opinionated.
I'm quite strongly opinionated at being a red.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it should be a red card. I've got no issues with it not being a red card. I think a yellow, it's one of those ones where if it's me or the par and I'm winced into a challenge, like you look at go, oh, and you sort of winch yourself, I think if you're wincing into it, you've got to be
thinking
straight away, like, hang about, this isn't right.
Yeah.
So when I saw it straight away, I said red. When I've watched it back, I thought red. There's not any point in my mind that I've gone, oh yeah, he may not have meant it. Like, for me, it's dangerous. It's endangering the safety. Like, admittedly, intent's not always there, but it's endangering the safety of the player. He's not in control because obviously his foot's going away. Yeah. So for me, in my mind, they are very strongly opinionated that it's a red or red.
And I'm of the orange opinion, I think, but I'm probably leaning more towards red, because I think our number one duty as referees is safety of players, right? And therefore that challenge had very strong, like, you could say it was lucky that the player hasn't come off injured, right? Yeah. Or come off worse injured. So to me, that challenge had a strong likelihood of resulting in a pretty damaging effect on that player, and therefore red is correct. So what I loved about it was quite, the Premier League referees obviously have this safety blanket that everyone's talking about with VAR. He could have very easily said yellow and waited to review it, but he went straight with a red, and I thought that was brave, and ultimately all four of us are effectively saying correct. So that was great.
Yeah, Hassan, we had a similar one in the Fulham game, Fulham Crystal Palace. Very similar challenge. I don't know if you've seen it. And that actually went to VAR to check for serious foul play. Came back as a red card. Yeah. But as you say, in this one, he's made the call there and then. And I think that's got to be about your angle of seeing it as a referee. If it's unclear, they've got the advantage of having the VAR to look at it. Like, Kevin Friend has obviously seen it for exactly what it is from his angle. He was within 10 meters of it.
Far away at all,
So I think that comes into it as well. We've seen hundreds of replays on the TV now, and it's only really the zoomed in, slowed down one where you will go 100% red. Sure. But on that initial angle is where we're in the middle ground.
Yeah, no, I agree. Brilliant. Okay, cool. So probably a little bit more controversial one, and maybe because it was in a Man U Chelsea game, which is obviously going to have a lot of the spotlight on it. But there was a corner or a free kick that came in, and there was Harry Maguire and Azpilicueta jostling for the ball, but looked more to be kind of a hug around Maguire, hugging Azpilicueta and basically impeding his ability to jump and make a challenge on the header. So I'm going to start with you, Billy, this time. What did you think? I hope you saw it, because we let you know it was coming.
I think my instant reaction probably helps him. Every time I watch a Gary Neville performance, he goes, "Ooh," which sort of gives away the decision straight away, what the fans are expecting. I think the fact that he holds him, stops him jumping, as well as he does look at the ball, but I think that's almost a way of him trying to protect himself already when he's defending himself. But I just think the fact that he's got his arm around here, you can't do that on a football pitch in the box, which is stopping him jumping. So I'd go penalty.
And Matt?
Yeah, I think that's our only decision to make there. There is no other decision other than that is a penalty. Interesting that they didn't go, or as far as we know, didn't go to VAR, because certainly you'd expect it to have been ruled.
So again, we don't know what's happened, but I think it's safe to say it would have been checked or would have been looked at by the VAR, and the decision was there wasn't a clear and obvious error. That must have been what's happened, right? But I guess, Matt, you're saying possibly it was?
I don't know, but I can't see another decision if VAR have ruled it not to be an error. It can be nothing but a foul. I don't see how it isn't a foul. The only possible defence for a referee is your position as a referee. If you're looking at that from behind, can you see the arm right across? You can see two players, but I think that's where you're relying heavily on your assistant.
And this is where, at kind of our level, where we don't have the benefit of VAR, is the positioning at that corner is vital. You're not going to be able to see everything that's going on in the box. There's just too many players pulling, pushing, whatever. So, probably the on-field referee in this game didn't have a great vantage point, because he's probably potentially looking at something else or just not in the right angle. So yeah, for our games, I think the key, and I don't know if you guys get the same from your observers and your assessors, is moving around a corner so you're not always in the same spot, so players don't know exactly where you are, and will always be thinking where you are rather than, you know, trying to get away with the same thing corner after corner.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think also reading the corners that have come before. They're all going to the front post. That's going to be your position. You're 90% going to go for. And in a high-profile game like this, you know who takes the corners for Man United. You know who takes the corners for Chelsea. So it would also come down to that, you know, where we move swiftly on into our podcast here, into pre-match. And our pre-match with our assistants as well. What was the assistant told? Was he told, don't give me penalties today? Or was he told, please come in? So that decision, if you're heavily relying on that as a referee, then, and your position of where he was at this game, you're not going to be able to give it. There's just no way.
Yeah. No, I think it's I'm pretty clear it's a pen. And maybe that's something that I just find it crazy that Maguire's even making that challenge, to be honest. Like, I think that's the one thing to consider is, like, you know, there's cameras all around and there is repercussions, or there should be repercussions. You know, I just find it crazy that, you know, the captain of Man United has made what should have been a fairly easy call to, you know, give a penalty, right? It's nuts. Because Azpilicueta, he should be able to beat Azpilicueta for the ball for a header, right? Like, it's just
I think that's what he's panicking about. That small guy's going to beat him to a header. Doesn't want to let that happen. So has to try and foul him.
Exactly. It's crazy. But cool. So, Matt, you alluded to some of the topics we wanted to chat about in more detail. Thanks for your guys' input on those decisions. We're going to talk today about how we prepare for matches. So Billy, you said you're a 6.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a 5. John's a 4, and Matt's a 4. So we've got a variety of different, probably techniques, I guess, for preparing for matches. And then also after that, we're going to touch on what you say to your assistants before a game, both neutral and club assistants, right? So let's just dive straight into preparing for matches. John, do you want to start with what you look for when you're preparing for matches?
I'm gonna be quite honest. I think I've left the zoo. Yeah, I'm reconnecting.
Fair enough. Well, we'll get you back in a second.
I'm pretty lazy in terms of actually. It's not lazy. It's past experiences that have killed me in certain scenarios. So I used to do my research about. Like where they are in the league, what their positions are, last 4 fixtures, and every time I seem to do that, the other team would win. So I'd be like, it's going to be should be a fairly easy win for the team in first place. They're playing bottom of the league. Bottom of the league would win. I did that 3 games on the spin, and do you know what I mean? It just upset everything. Yeah. So like
because you went in with preconceived ideas.
Yeah, a little bit like that. Like it should be like this. It should be like that. Like should be what happened, and then you go in like this should happen, and then you also hear. Like you talk to your mates sometimes and be like, who are the problem players? And it's a weird one because all the problem players that my mates have, I can deal with, and all the people that I can't deal with, my mates get on with fine. Yeah. So it makes life a little bit more difficult. So I just cut it out and be like, no, I don't care where you are in the league. This is a new game for me. We go. Okay.
So cool. So you tried a little bit of prep, or quite a bit of prep, and then you didn't feel like it worked, or did you feel uncomfortable? Like, did you feel like you were in the game kind of guessing about things that might happen as well?
A little bit, yeah. Like the team would go, the team that you expected to win would go 1-0 down. You think, oh, here we go. Yeah. And then you know that you're in for probably a bit more of a bloodbath.
Okay. Because I get that.
Rather than a team goes 1-0 up and you go, okay, right, you up it for 10 minutes. But if the underdog starts winning, you start thinking, right, this could. So you're already planning for something that's not happening.
Cool.
So that's what I found.
Cool. Matt, what about yourself?
Similar to John, really. I used to, where are they on the table? What was their last results? What's this going to be? A drum in one way. It's just going to be one-way traffic. And again, I learned the lesson of don't do it. Don't look too much into it. Some of the guys you chat with, other referees, you say, I've got so-and-so in 2 weeks' time or whatever. And they'll say, yeah. Horrible bunch, and then you'll have them, and you're like, I don't have a problem with any of them. Do you know what I mean? So take it out. don't go into a game where you're thinking, oh, they're going to be horrible, or this is going to be a one-way traffic. You can only control the controllables, and you can only referee what's right in front of you. So that for me is my prep. Not as lazy as John, obviously, but but not so in depth as I used to be. So I will look at the league table just so I know: am I going into a top versus bottom, or am I going in for what is going to potentially be a title decider or relegation decider? So I want to know that before I get there. So more I know the occasion that I'm going to rather than the game that I'm turning up to. It's quite good prep, but yeah, nothing too in depth, and I won't seek out anything. So I won't go and speak to like the last referee that had them last week and say, "Oh, what did you find?" Because I think you're looking for problems rather than looking for your game of how you're going to ref it.
And I'll just come in there. Like, I think the key thing is, even though all four of us could talk about refereeing all day long, the way we implement our styles on the pitch is probably, I've never seen some of you referee, but it's probably very different. Yeah. So exactly like you mentioned, the players that you get on with, I would hate, and vice versa. Yeah. I'm sure that's probably the case. So me asking you about your opinion on my game this weekend kind of is, like you both found, unfruitful. It doesn't really give you anything. So that's interesting. Billy, what about yourself? Are you the avid researcher, or are you the quote unquote lazy, as John said, but the go with the flow?
I'd say I'm a bit in between. I definitely look at where they are, just so sort of like John said, for the opposite reason. If you know that the bottom of the league team are winning, at least you sort of know what might happen next, that they might get a bit more physical. So you can at least know what's going to happen and sort of prepare yourself. And then one thing I always do is sort of check if they've played each other in a like last game or previous seasons, and just see what sort of game it was, whether it was close, whether they've got similar players, whether there were a lot of cards, and just sort of understand what the game might be like, but not read too much into it, but just sort of give myself a bit of background for the game.
Brilliant. So do any of you look at, so again, depending on our levels, right? Most games are quote unquote derbies because everyone's fairly close together. Yeah. But do you guys look at or know enough about your leagues to know those teams hate each other? And do you do that? Yeah.
You pick it up. Like, I know there are certain teams that that are local derbies and that are going to be feisty. You don't need to look it up to know. It doesn't matter what players are playing. You know it's going to be, the crowd are going to be there, especially at our level. The crowd are going to be behind them. It's going to be a bit tasty, regardless of where they are in the league. So yeah, there's definitely derbies within the county.
Brilliant. And yourselves, like you know all of the, you'll do some research enough to know at least the club's histories with each other. Maybe not fixtures, but at least rivalry.
Yeah, I think it just becomes common knowledge on the circuit with certain teams that play each other. It's always feisty, or you go in there on a Tuesday night and under the lights something different happens to players. So yeah.
So the I guess my question is, like, how does a new referee find these out? Because it's hard, right? Like you could either move from one city to another, or one region, one county to another, and you have no idea who these teams are, right? You only pick it up with the experience of going out. So is there any way, like, Billy, do you have any idea on how you figured out that this team and this team don't get on? Or is it literally that first game, then you realize that after it, you're like, oh, okay, I wish I knew that before?
Yeah, it normally takes an experience like that to learn that you probably should do a bit of research. You get a game where it's a bit feisty, and you'll think, oh crap, I probably should have prepared for that a bit better.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you'll just see, so you'll see the names, like you'll see Eastbourne Town, Eastbourne United, both got Eastbourne in their names, so it's going to be a bit of a feisty one anyway. Something like that will just give you a bit of a hint, but normally I'll have to just have a bad experience to remember to look out for them again.
I think here's another key thing for me is we're based in Sussex, and Sussex is a fairly large county. And some of the team names, I've never heard of those towns or villages before. So like Googling just where the places are, because they might, like Billy said, Eastbourne Town, Eastbourne United, easy. You know, it's got something written all over it, right? But then you could have some random teams that you've never heard of, and you just haven't got a clue where they are, and you just find out the next village along from each other. That's what you need to do as well. It's not just Google where you're going, but Google where the other team are coming from, and then you're in a good place to know. That's an interesting point though. There is Googling where the other team's coming from and knowing how long their journey is. Is that something you do? I'm throwing these ideas out there for people who listen.
No, I think that asking players where they've come from is a good talking point when I'm sitting around the centre circle. So obviously there's a lot of this home team bias that comes out quite a lot. A home team gets a higher advantage. They've got obviously their secretaries there, they've got their fans, they've got a lot of this. So when I'm walking around, I'll talk to the away team. Oh, you travelled far. Oh no, we're just up the road. Oh, okay, cool. So it's an easy trip home. Do you know what I mean? It helps build more rapport quickly with the players, obviously being down to earth, because then they usually reciprocate. Wherever you come from, I've come from Brighton. Sure. So it's not too bad.
Cool. Any am I just throwing a random idea out there with that? Because the reason I remember something about this, and it's pretty easy. It's funny, in Eastbourne Town, I think I was doing a game at Pagham, which is near Bognor Regis, against Eastbourne. It was a Tuesday night, probably, like Matt mentioned, and there was reports that there was car crashes on the way. I think we were on the game together. Yeah, there you go. And ended up they I don't think they could get the whole team there because of these crashes. So knowing the geography of where the team's coming from, like, we knew that was the other side of the county, and they were probably coming along the big roads. Whereas if you knew that the team was up the road, they should have been there perfectly fine, right? So, any other things that you like, maybe that you don't do, but you think would be good advice to people in terms of preparation? So, here's one for me: is form. The key thing around form. You mentioned position at the table, which is one, because the manager might be feeling pressure, right? If he's at the bottom of the table, even at our level, managers get sacked, which is fun. It's interesting, right? But they might be feeling that pressure, or they've been on like 5 or 6 games with losing all of them. It changes, for me at least, the way I go and have a conversation with that manager. If a team has lost their last load of games and they're bottom of the league, I'm less likely to have a joke with that person. I'm going to look like I want to be a little bit, I want to look very, very professional. Whereas if the team's having a pretty good season, I feel like I can be a bit more relaxed. I feel like I can show a little bit more, character, I guess. I don't know. Do you guys think that at all?
Well, based on last season, when I had 3 games in the trot, and after each game the manager was sacked, that became a bit of an unlucky omen to teams. I think they hated when they saw me turn up. But I guess you could use that. I don't know whether I've certainly never done it for this manager's under pressure. I just like to talk to him and say, how's your season going? And then judge a conversation from there. Because vice versa, you may have that manager that's unbeaten all season and he's feeling under pressure because he doesn't want that first loss. And he wants you to be, if you're going in jokey with him, he's thinking, no, take it seriously, ref, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm intrigued because basically I watched a video of Pierluigi Collina, arguably one of the best referees in history. And he's the complete opposite to, I think, what we've discussed, where he would over-prepare for everything. And he'd know which players were going to be marking which players, all the tactics of the game, which is obviously a lot easier at his level, right?
At that level, they get given it, don't they?
Yeah, they've got the video, they've got access to videos.
But they have an analyst, don't they? Like the PGMOL, there was an advert that came out for an analyst, and they get given that, who gets fouled the most, who's been yellow carded, what their last formations are. There they are, meticulous. Because at that level, there's that phrase like "prepared to fail." Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. Yeah, and that probably is right at that level, isn't it? Yeah, no, definitely. I think they've got the tools and the access to be able to do it. Do you guys get many of your games recorded, or at least the teams that you would officiate recorded? Billy, not really.
Yeah, highlights packages.
Yeah, do you ever watch them? Again, that's another form of preparation, right? No, what about the teams that you're about to do?
Okay, in terms of watching their last game, no. I watch my highlights.
Your highlights, yeah, sure. I do the same.
Ego. That's all ego, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. Got it right. I think it's like, if you're worried about a decision and it doesn't turn up in the highlights package, that's a great sign, right? Oh, yeah. That means you probably got it right and there's nothing to think about. Depends. If it's the home team and it was a decision against them, No, against the away team, they probably wouldn't show it in the highlights package anyway. But if it's for the home team,
exactly.
That's one. But it's also a great way of just being able to quickly double check on the big decisions. So there was a couple of offside decisions I had for goals, and I was convinced I was correct. And then I watched the goals back, and I was very happy, but they were super tight. But it is nice to be able to quickly, especially the speed of these highlights coming out like the next day. You just completely, as soon as you watch it, you're like, great, I can sleep now. I'm done. I can go and enjoy my beer or whatever. So the other last thing I wanted to talk about around preparation was if you have an observer at your game. So if you know on Saturday, Sunday, your appointment comes through and you get a notification there's going to be an observer at your game, does that change your preparation? No?
Oh, yeah. No,
Billy's like, maybe.
I'm going to say yeah.
Okay, go on.
Each assessor, I like this, can sound really bad, it's going to probably put me in the dirt here. So, Dad, if you're watching, I'm sorry.
His dad's a observer, referee, coach, and all of this. So.
Yeah, so
he's my coach, I think.
Each observer has their own quirks. Yeah, he is. In terms of some don't are higher. You get higher marks from them if you deal with dissent better.
Yeah.
Some love you to play the advantage. So what I do is I look back and I've had this guy before. What did he like?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he liked it when I used the stepped approach. Okay. Well, then I'm bringing the captain in for the first foul. I'm bringing the captain in for the first dissent. Oh, he didn't like dissent. Right. Okay. So we're looking to give maybe potentially a quick yellow for dissent. Like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You look at what they like and you know what they're going to give big marks for, or what their personal quirks are. So you look at that and be like, okay, this is what I've got to sort of be prepared for in terms of if this situation arises where I can step up to the way they like it, then I will.
Yeah. John, you mentioned that you look at your previous observations by that person.
Yeah.
Do you ever do research amongst your friends again?
Yes and no. I feel like observer marks are a very highly guarded secret, especially at level 4. Like Billy is working to a number, as in he has to get above standard expected throughout the season, and then when he goes 5 to 4, he's going at 70, I think. So you're facing the number. Yeah. Whereas at 4-3-2, you're facing everybody else. Yeah. Like it's you v them, and your marks are a little bit more precious, and it's not my place to ask, because eventually if I ask you, if you send me the report, I know what you've got. Yeah. And there are people that have the spreadsheet, try and work out where they are, and it can become a little bit sort of like feisty. So I might ask like, oh, you've had like Jim, what's he like? And they say, okay, maybe do this, but I tend to look at my own stuff first.
That's a really good point, because I'm not a 4, so as a 5, I would ask.
Yeah, that's fair.
It makes sense. Matt, I think you were going to say something. I interrupted.
That's okay. I was just going to agree with John about finding out about who your observer is and what they do and don't like. Some might be old school and they want a phone call on the Monday as soon as they know they're going to be observed in a chat, and then a meet at the ground and really look after and put your arm around them, get them a cup of tea, because that's what they like. It's got nothing to do with the game, but if they don't get that, they're suddenly like, well, who's this ref think he is, kind of attitude sometimes I've got. But yeah, the biggest thing you can do is not make the same mistake in your second observation with the same observer. If you're making the same mistake, he will look back, because no doubt, these observers, they keep all their paperwork and they look back, oh, I've had Matt or I've had John last season. What did I write about him last season? If they're writing the same thing again, it's not good.
Yeah. That's something we're gonna have to get some observers on at some point and ask them that. Yeah. Do they go back through their history? Oh yeah, I'm sure they would. Oh, they do. Billy, when I asked about do you change your prep for observers, you kind of slightly nodded there. What do you change? I think. What do you change?
As a 6 and the 7 last year, only 3 observations needed a season, so they matter a lot more. Sort of. Is a bit of a make or break situation with only having 3. Yeah, so I think it matters a lot more about knowing what your observer likes, sort of talking, because you're not competing with other people, talking to your mates who have had the same observer, knowing what they like, knowing what they don't like, and just putting that into practice and getting that observation ticked off. I think that's just the key thing about it, really.
No, I think that's good. I remember 2 specific examples where I've had new observers that I've never had before. I reached out to a couple of colleagues, and it helped twice, right? So once the feedback was, he really likes when you get wide. right? So I was wide as hell this whole game. My heat map, I was using our app, and my heat map was like, I was basically an assistant referee for these games. And the feedback I got after the game was I wasn't wide enough, which just blew my mind. And then the second one, which was very different, was there's a fairly notorious observer in Sussex who really does not like you swearing. And he's actually really open about it. He'll tell you before the game, look, just to let you know, I really dislike swearing, and that's just my personal opinion. I'm gonna observe you as normal,
because that's how he ref.
But that's just something to know. And like everyone knows that going into if he's observing you, and that just slightly it played in my mind, but also I have a very opposite level of like tolerance where, you know, if they're not going at me, you know, I'm okay about it, or I'll try and manage it. Or we had a conversation about swearing last week. I won't swear back at them, but I'll have a interesting conversation back. So it did play in my mind, and I didn't change my tolerance level for that observer, which is what you should be doing.
You should, like, I know this whole conversation is about, do you change a little bit?
Yeah.
But especially at our level where we get observed in a minimum of 50% of our games, if you start changing week in, week out, your consistency level dies.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing that's drilled in, especially to me at a young age. Like, obviously, like, we love to joke, my dad was a ref, so I've been going to games for a long time. And like, drill it in, like, don't change for the assessor, just ref how you ref, and then it will come.
I think that's a great point. Matt, were you going to say something else, or no? You're just nodding. Fair enough. No, that's great. So that's I guess around preparing for matches. You can spend all the time in the world looking at league tables, looking at player names, old matches, video highlights. There's so much you can do. And I guess the feedback is try it out, see if it works for you. For John and Matt, they did a lot and it didn't work, and Billy's kind of got this hybrid where he does a little bit and doesn't. For me, I guess mine is all about depending on the severity of the game, like how big is this game. Like I would never do prep for a Sunday league game, for example, rightly or wrongly. Like, you know, I wouldn't. I feel like Sunday league football is a vast like difference to a Saturday game in the pyramid. But you know, the more important, maybe what I would prepare for more is the new games, like the new levels I've got to. So if I all of a sudden I'm doing a Div 1 game where I'm normally used to Div 2, I'll do a bit more research for the first couple until I get my foot into the door and I can see, okay, there's, you know, I can do this. So yeah, I guess the feedback to anyone listening or watching is try it out.
Yeah, it's personal, isn't it?
It's definitely personal, but let us know what you do. Let us know what works for you. Just tweet us, send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to move on really quickly and just have a brief conversation. Kind of, we talked about preparation for matches, and we wanted to chat about what you say to your assistants. Before I get to that, I guess a hybrid question is: do you prepare for do you know who your assistants are? Do you research your assistants before you turn up at a game? You don't?
Nah, like, they've been doing it long enough.
Yeah.
Like they're all qualified at my level. They're qualified referees. Like, I'm a four, so I get two neutral assistants. Billy, I'm assuming sometimes you do get them like neutral assistants.
If I'm lucky,
yeah. They know what they're doing. The chances I've been with them before, I'll give them a pre-match, but I don't like look into them, like what games they've done. Like they can tell me that.
Okay. And Matt, what about you?
Not research as such, but when I confirm the fixture with them, it will either be over the phone or now I started using Zoom with all three of us in a Zoom chat, which I find really good. And I'll chat then. I'll say, so how long have you been reffing? Especially if I don't know them, how long have you been reffing? What's, you know, been doing? How many lines have you done? And just it's more of a general chat, but I'm actually trying to find out from them what their experiences are like.
That's a cool idea. We might get you on it in the future to talk us through your Zoom call, pre-match Zoom calls. That's not a pre-match team talk before you even go out to the game. You're all in your cars on your phones having your pre-match chat.
I send an email on the Friday night saying be there at 12, like be there whenever really. Don't worry about it. And he's going 3 days before.
Everyone's different, like you said. But I guess there should be no feeling or emotion about being a senior assistant or a junior assistant, really.
They fight over, they want a junior, all of them at the county league level, junior, easy day out. I have a game tonight, junior for me, please, easy day out.
But there are some games where you actually kind of want to be the senior too, right?
Yeah.
There is, right? So what I didn't like going into my games, what I don't like is I just like to know where I stand. Yeah, I don't want a surprise. So if I'm junior, I'm junior. If I'm senior, I'm senior. And if I'm the referee, I want to know what decision I'm going to make before I get to the game.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to because as the assistant, I always just want to know, tell me. But it seems to be like the last thing you do in the pre-match, or some people do it last in the pre-match. They go through everything and they say, okay, you're going to be senior, you're going to be junior. And I don't love that because it changes the way I'm thinking about the game.
I agree, that's fair.
So what I would always like to do is try and figure it out. Well, one, as a referee, I need to know who's going to be my senior and junior before I get to the game, if possible, right? Do you agree or not?
I disagree with that, just due to the fact that like some people are very comfortable. So obviously, when it comes through as a thing, you'll get AR1, AR2, and usually AR1 is senior.
Sure.
But say it was you and Billy.
Yeah.
On my game, and you weren't fancying it, you maybe hurt your ankle a little bit, but you're AR1, so I know in my head that you're AR1, but Billy's really keen to be senior today, and I'm happy for either. As a comfortable thing, I'm more comfortable with you being comfortable because you'll be able to perform more comfortable now being AR2 than him being AR1.
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes when you get to the game and ask the assistants who fancies it today, and if they go, yeah, I don't mind doing it, that's perfect because he's comfortable.
I agree with that. I think for me, from my own perspective, is just like going in with a plan on who is going to be what is useful. And you have to be adaptable, you have to change, but that's that. Do you guys do you do that, Matt? Like,
yeah, I mean, that's
is that
part
on
of
your Zoom call?
That's my Zoom call. That's like I now know, and if I can discuss it there and then with them, I'll say, okay, you're going to be my senior on Saturday, and you'll be my. I hate calling them junior,
sure,
but yeah, I like to have it there before I get to the game because, as you say, you need to prepare for the game as well. Or if one of them then says to me, "Oh, I was there 2 weeks ago, and the benches just gave me hell for 90 minutes," then I know that now before I even get to the game. I'm not even thinking about putting you there. I'm, preparing somebody else to be there. But then it's flexible when I get to the game. Like you say, if Billy doesn't fancy it on Saturday and he was going to be my assistant one, again, I'll change it. I'll change it there and then.
And the last point on this is, again, just kind of my thoughts, and no one cares about what I think. This is just my thoughts. Is again, the preparation. Like, I think the skill set of being the senior assistant, you're kind of half referee, half assistant, because you've got to deal with the benches, right? Whereas if you're the assistant on the far side, you're an assistant referee. You're mainly doing offside and everything else. Whereas being a senior, and goals and everything, but being the senior, you've got that added manage the bench.
You've also got that extra pressure of, if I pull a hamstring, game on.
Yes, that's true.
That's an extra thing. Like, I had a referee going down. He came in at halftime and said my hamstring hurts. Like, me being senior, it's like, hang about. Now I've got to get into a mindset of ifs and buts.
Yeah.
So that's a third now thing to think about, isn't it? You've got the benches, the game, and I've now got a potentially injured referee.
Yeah.
Game on.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. Some games you want that. Go on.
Can I throw a curveball into that?
Go on.
So, why do we always put our senior referee dugout side? If you think for, I don't know, say you pull your hamstring in the 80th minute, for 80 minutes he's had nothing but the dugouts at him. Mm-hmm. He's been throwing you under a bus about every single decision, or he's been getting himself out of the trouble by agreeing with him, keeping him happy. He's now got to come on and referee the game. Yeah. If you put him over the far side, out of the way, no one's spoken to him for that 80 minutes, then he's coming on fresh.
I think that's a great...
It's character building, isn't it?
I think that's a great point, and that is definitely something for people to think about, because...
Especially if you've got an assistant who's really more experienced than you, say, tries to referee the game for you, is to say, you are my senior assistant, but I'm going to put you over there away from the dugout to get me in trouble.
Yeah. No, I get that. And the other thing on this one is, when you're selecting your assistants, is what I've tried to do is always, if I've got the choice to, some games they are AR1, they are AR2, depending on the league. I'd always like to put someone I know on the senior assistant.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't mean that doesn't necessarily mean I know and they're the great person for the role. It's just I know what I'm going to get from that person.
It's trust, isn't it?
But it's not necessarily trust, because there's been some times where I've not had a great experience with an assistant, and I'll go out with him again, and there'll be another assistant I've never met before, and sometimes I'm leaning towards, at least I know exactly what's going to come from this, experience with putting this assistant on that side. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
100%.
So I know that, okay, maybe he's going to be a little bit more conversational with the managers, and maybe I'm going to want to, nip
Keep
that
him
apart.
away.
I don't know. Yeah. So Billy, you kind of mentioned you do, you're a 6, so you're probably more going down the club assistant route than the neutral assistant. So how does that change your conversation with them? Do you want to just tell us what you do from a pre-match perspective?
Yeah, can do. I just like to keep it quite basic, because often they won't listen to most of what you have to say. So you normally have to.
They don't want to be doing it in most cases, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I think normally I'll describe to them the main bit. So main function would be offside. Only time I'd go against them is if they're massively out of line, which is just, it's not a sellable decision. They'll just throw me under the bus, or if it's come off someone else. Then I think fouls, I tend to tell them, just leave it to me, so we can be consistent in both halves, because otherwise if one person's giving one and one person's giving nothing, it's not going to go very well for me. And then I think balling out of play, normally I'll listen to them, but if I'm leading one way, just drop your flag, let me take the shit, say you were right, and then we sort of move on with there. So sort of, I try and build a relationship with them from the start, so that they sort of trust in what I'm saying, instead of just saying, yeah, you had the flag, you crack on whatever you want to do, just sort of setting the ground rules, so hopefully they can actually work with you.
I think that's almost exactly the same as what I do. I don't ask for fouls, and
no.
and I'll tell them, and I like to bring them on my side, right? So I'll say, look, even if it's blatant in front of you, I'll tell the captains that I'm making those decisions. I've missed it, it's my fault. So it makes me look a bit human towards them. The one thing I'll say, Billy, I don't know if you do this or not, one thing that helped me with club assistants is really simple. It's, hi, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate your time. I've got 3 instructions for you.
Yeah.
And because I said 3, they know to listen to 3. Whereas if you don't say the number, they're worried that it's going to drag on. And like actually 3 focuses their mind. They'll be like, cool. It's just a checklist. And then, so they stay engaged. So sometimes, and it keeps you engaged. It keeps you to message as well. So I don't know if you do that, but that's something to try out. I found that works. And what about, I guess, Matt, let's talk about neutral assistants. So what are the major things that you go through when you're having that?
Yeah.
And let's talk about your Zoom call, and let's talk about match day. So is the Zoom call just, go on, you go.
Can I throw one in about club assistants?
Yes, please. Yeah.
And it's going to sound ridiculous, you're going to laugh, right? But it's a really good tip. Is say to the guy, oh, did you do it last week? And he'll go, oh, yeah, I did. Go, oh, I heard you were really good last week. So, and thank them, and really big them up, because a lot of the time those club assistants just don't want to do it, or they're the only one that's willing to do it. It's just big them up. If you make them feel really, really good. So you were last week's, were you? Yeah, I was last week's. Oh, I heard you were amazing. And they're like, oh.
That's a cool one. Before we go into neutrals then, do you bring them in at any point for like the toss or handshakes or anything like that?
No, they don't want to be there. I literally, my things like Billy's, I keep it short and sweet. I go, cheers for helping me. I know you don't want to do it. Offsides, goal kicks, throw-ins. Cheers. Bye.
you give them a little bit more than that.
No, generally that's it.
Okay.
And generally, because half the time they're going to swap with a sub anyway. So if I keep it short and sweet, offside, goal, yeah, that's it. That genuinely is it.
No, fair enough. Go on, Matt. What were you going to say?
I could flip that on his head, and you've already told the guy he doesn't want to do it. Therefore, when he starts not getting things right for you or not going the way you want it to go, I told you. You know I don't want to do it, ref.
I mean, for me, in most cases, a club assistant's there to let me know when the ball's gone out of play. And most likely, 9 times out of 10, I'm actually going to go with the offsides, because I'm not going to be in a great position to overrule them. But if it gets stupid, I'll let them know that I'm starting to kind of maybe take those decisions off. And I'll start having to run a lot faster and get to the positions, maybe take up fairly abnormal or not standard positions at certain areas, right? Just for that. Okay, let's move on to neutral assistants then. Go on, Matt.
All starts with a Zoom call.
Yeah.
For me.
Is this a new normal? This wasn't last year. This is what you've done for this year.
This is something. So it just occurred to me that I have two separate conversations. And sometimes I'll forget what I've said to one assistant, like a little bit, and then say to the next. And I wouldn't do that in a game scenario. We wouldn't have two briefings. So if it's not Zoom, it's like maybe a WhatsApp group of all three of us in it. And I just found that we can all see each other's face. So I may not have worked with these two assistants before. How do I know who they are when they turn up at the ground? And sometimes I can just feel like you get a quite good reading of that person's attitude and whether they're up for the game, their commitment. And I feel like we already feel like a team of three, days before the game. And they've got trust in me that if things occur between now and the game, you can come to me.
Yeah, I really like that, the whole like being part of a team. Interestingly, and this is an aside, it's another project that we're working on that we'll discuss at another point in time, but I was with an assistant referee who got a very important final. It was at a big tournament, and the referee, they were part of a mixed team of officials. They weren't from the same country. And the referee on the day of the appointment said, okay, for the rest of the week, we're hanging out together, we're watching movies, we're eating, we're training, we're doing everything together, building up for that Saturday, because, so that's really interesting, Matt, that you said that. Yeah. John, I'm assuming you don't do something like that.
No. I am a big fan of this team cohesion thing. I think in my pre-match, I talk about thumbs up, smiles, enjoyment. Like, that's a big part of it. And I buy jelly babies and I buy Lucozade, for that team cohesion. Admittedly, that probably could help me, but I've worked with a lot of these people before. So for me, I don't need it as much. They know who I am. I've run the line to them. Yeah. And now they're running the line to me. So we usually know how each other work. So I personally don't feel like I need that. I send an email or a text probably on the Thursday saying, if you could get to the ground an hour, 75 minutes before, that'd be great. If not, 12 o'clock, an hour before is fine. Make them comfortable. I'm a big fan of making them feel comfortable as well.
Brilliant. So I'm just looking at the clock, and we've been rabbiting on about stuff. So we haven't really gone into the assistant stuff. So we may pause that and come back to that next week. And if you guys are at all free, it'll be great to get you back on. And we'll go into detail on that. But really appreciate your both time, your input in this session. It was great to hear, of the pre-match Zoom call. That's a super interesting new thing. And I wish you both best for the season to come. And actually, if we get you on next week, we'll see if our schedules permit. But we'll go deeper into, chatting about what we do with the assistants and stuff like that. But for everyone who's listening, I hope, again, that you enjoyed that session. We were just, chatting stuff about refereeing, what we all love and why you're listening, really. The key thing to note from us, or the key takeaway from this chat, is the REF6k challenge. It's on Sunday. It's all throughout November. So if you can't do it on Sunday, you can do it during the week, during the weekends, whenever. Just run 6k, donate £6 for our Just Giving link, which you'll find in the show description, as well as on our YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, etc. And then nominate 6 of your refereeing pals. It's for a great cause, and we're really passionate. We want to showcase what the power of the refereeing community and fraternity can kind of offer. So this is a real opportunity to be able to say, referees all over the country have provided have helped out in this way. And I know there's a ton of referees doing great stuff with charities, working with stuff, but this is just another way of showing support. So once again, Billy, Matt, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. John, thanks for being here with me.
Pleasure as always.
Take care, everyone.
No problem.